But our first encounter is with a Sri Lankan woman who's fondly known as the whale poop girl. Just so you know, there'll be quite a few references to whale excrement over the next few minutes.
Not everyone can say that their career starts with a pile of poop, but mine did. There are people in the world who call me the whale poop girl, and I'm quite okay with that.
She also goes by another name, Asha De Vos, and she's a marine biologist who runs Sri Lanka's first marine conservation centre, Oceanswell. For the last 10 years, Asha's been working on a project to study and help save endangered blue whales, specifically pygmy blue whales native to Sri Lanka. Now, pygmy makes them sound little. Far from it. They can be 24 metres long, 79 feet, but that still makes them just 4/5 of the size of blue whales, the largest of all the mammals. And they've been part of Asha's life since she was small.
The reason I really love the water, or particularly the ocean, is there's a sense of freedom in it. And it's this magical underwater kingdom. I'd say water is definitely my element. And as my mom would say, I'm either in it, on it, or around it. So that sort of sums up my life, I'd say. My first attempt to sort of save marine mammals was a poster competition I participated in when I was about 6 or 7 years old. I drew this fabulous poster, I think it's fabulous, of these two whales, and they had red lipstick and sharp teeth. Completely inaccurate, I know that now. Also, like when I was younger, I remember I used to go for puppetry classes at the local museum. I don't remember the puppetry classes, but there was a blue whale skeleton hanging on the ceiling, and I used to lie below that and think, where does this creature come from? How is it so large? This particular skeleton's about 65, 70 feet, so it's huge, and when you're a 6, 7-year-old child, that's kind of monstrous. From that point, onwards, I was sort of intrigued about these giants out there. Yeah, whales were just fascinating.
And so she became a marine biologist, one of just a handful in Sri Lanka, and it was on her first big expedition that she became fascinated by whale poop.
So in 2003, I was working on a whale research vessel that was circumnavigating the globe. I had this rare opportunity to get on board after much begging and pleading. We were doing some research with sperm whales. And this was my first experience sort of actually hands-on doing fieldwork in the presence of whales, sort of observing them, collecting samples, collecting sounds. There was this one particular day we were off the southeast coast of Sri Lanka. It was beautiful and flat calm, and I was looking for this pod of sperm whales that we'd been tracking through the night. So I could hear their calls because we used to play them on loudspeaker in the boat. But I just couldn't see them, and I was getting increasingly frustrated because I really wanted to be the one to see them. And then in the distance, I saw something even more magnificent, and that was the tall vertical spout or blow of a blue whale. We started moving in the direction of this giant animal, and then I started losing my mind because it wasn't one blue whale, but there were about 6 in an area the size of a football field. So if you think about it, a single blue whale can grow as long as a basketball court, and you're fitting 6 of those in a football field. At that point, I was really excited because I thought, okay, what is it that these whales might be doing? Why are they pretty much on top of each other? Why are they aggregating in this tiny part of the ocean when they have 70% of the ocean to roam? And there must be a scientific reason, right? So I had just come out of undergrad, so of course, full of textbook knowledge and knowledge from my professors. And what I'd been taught was that large whales like blue whales generally go to cold waters to feed and then come back to warm waters to breed and calve. And since Sri Lanka is just 5 degrees above the equator, it's really warm and as tropical as you can get. I'm thinking, okay, these guys are obviously either having babies or mating, right? So I was super stoked. I was really excited because I thought, wow, I'm going to be the first person on the planet to ever document this, never been seen. And we started getting closer and closer and closer, and I'm off the edge of my boat just watching. And we get there, and these whales are doing nothing that looks like mating, certainly, and there's no, calves around. So I just asked if the captain would mind sticking around for a little bit, and he says, yeah, fine, that's okay. And I'm really glad we did, because at that moment I saw this big red plume come out the bum of a whale. So it was a big pile of whale poop. I always tell people that whale poop is the most beautiful poop in the animal kingdom. And I challenge people to actually send me pictures of more beautiful poop. When I saw it, the ocean was this deep blue color. And on top, you found these sort of lumps of bright red poo just floating along. And I'm thinking to myself, first of all, why is it red? And I soon learned that it's because of what they feed on, these tiny little crustaceans. But the most intriguing part is not the fact that it is this incredible color, but the fact that these animals are not doing what my textbooks have told me. They're doing something completely different. When you see poo, you know an animal is feeding somewhere close. And they're clearly feeding here. And for me, I thought, wow, something special is going on. And I did, I admit, reach out with an old tea strainer we had on the boat and collected some because I really wanted to know what it felt like, which seems like a really strange thing to say, but I was curious. So I scooped some up and I picked it up and I touched it and it was really silty. And today I do research on whale poop. I collect whale poop to understand lots of things like what these whales are feeding on specifically. And so we have to have our eyes peeled. As soon as we see a whale poop, we have to get there before this, really valuable sample starts to dissolve into the water column and it vanishes forever.
Asha has collected an awful lot of whale excrement since then.
Yeah, I definitely have the biggest collection of Sri Lankan blue whale poop in the world. I had to buy an entire freezer for my samples because my mum was having none of it in her freezer, which is totally understandable.
I'll say. So the important question then, why is it so important?
When whales feed, they tend to dive to the depths and they go to these areas where there are nutrients that you don't really find in surface waters. So they feast down there, then they come back up to the surface, and as they do so, they poop. And these piles of poo are essentially now chock full of these incredible ingredients, and it's like ocean fertilizer. As it's released, there are these tiny microscopic plants called phytoplankton and release oxygen into the environment. So many people don't realize that between 50 to 70% of the oxygen that we breathe is actually manufactured by plants in the ocean. This is really important.
Next time you take a breath, think of that. It may well have passed through a whale. Quite a thought, isn't it? I mentioned that blue whales are endangered and that Asha has been trying to save them. Sri Lanka is one of the most dangerous places they can be.
The number one threat that they face in these oceans, or particularly around Sri Lanka, is that of ship strike, where they get hit by a ship and they get killed. Probably the most tragic one was this whale that came into a main port in Sri Lanka, wrapped on the front of a container ship. And I think the saddest part is you think these are the largest animals that have ever roamed the planet, and on the bow of a vessel that size, it's just like a limp tadpole, and it is heart-wrenching. The issue here is that Sri Lanka is on the path of one of the biggest shipping highways in the world. Basically, if everything from, say, Singapore to Dubai is traveling through these waters, it's a main artery through the Indian Ocean. So it's heavy traffic. And one of the things we found is that about 90% of the vessels that use this, highway are not coming into local ports here in Sri Lanka. So if we shifted shipping lanes, a few nautical miles further offshore, out of the areas where blue whales sort of feed and are very dependent, then we can separate the spaces, and that can have obviously a positive impact. And then apart from that, there's the 10% of vessels that do have to come in close to shore because they're coming into our port, say in Colombo. We still have to do a bit more research to find out exactly what we can do, but at the moment what we suggest is, if ships could slow down in particular areas that we can identify, then the risk of lethal ship strike is much reduced. And these are recommendations that we've come up with based on science that we are now trying to take to the government, basically.
Asha's doing what she can for the blue whale. All she wants in return is for one to look her in the eye.
So to be fair, I've looked a humpback whale in the eye, but blue whales they have very different kinds of personalities. They tend to be very skittery, they're not as interactive or curious as humpbacks, so never had the privilege of looking a blue whale in the eye, but I believe that they know I'm out there.
Asha De Vos, founder of the Sri Lankan Blue Whale Project.